All right, welcome to another edition of Niners Nightly. I'm Larry Krueger with you. It is September the 10th at 6 o'clock on KMBR's YouTube channel. Niners Nightly comes at you every night, 6 to 7 o'clock, talking Niner football, whether it be on the radio or if there's Giants baseball, it will be on KMBR's YouTube page like we are going to do really throughout this entire week. As we come to you, we had the Monday night game last night. We come to you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 6 to 7. And all week long, we'll be on KMBR's YouTube page because of Giants baseball. Giants playing a lot of West Coast evening start times here in September with a lot of the kids back in school. And so that pushes us over to the YouTube channel. And we're going to have a great hour as we talk a little bit about what I think was the most impressive team in the NFL in week one. Your 49ers, our 49ers, my 49ers, whatever way you want to describe it. The Niners, I thought, were the best team in the NFL. As you said to me, who was the most impressive team in pro football this week? I would say it was the San Francisco 49ers. If you go look at what everybody did around pro football, and if I said to you who was the most impressive team, I mean, is it now Kansas City got a nice win, 27-20 over the Baltimore Ravens on the Thursday night kickoff show, which seems like, or their kickoff game, which seems like a long, long time ago now. 27-20, the Chiefs beat the Ravens. So, and considering the opposition, that was the rematch of the AFC title game. You know, there's a lot of people that felt like the Chiefs were the most impressive team of week one. They were definitely impressive. And they got 27 points on the board against the Ravens defense. Isaiah Likely's toe was just outside the end zone. Otherwise, we would have been staring at 27-27 with that game going to overtime at Arrowhead. So I thought the Chiefs were very impressive. I thought the Eagles were very impressive. What impressed me about the Eagles is that they acquired Saquon Barkley. Barkley has played behind one of the worst offensive lines in pro football the last few years with the New York Giants. Now he goes to Philadelphia, and even with the retirement of Jason Kelsey, they still are, even with the retirement of Kelsey, I think the Eagles still have one of the best lines in pro football. And now they brought in Mekhi Becton, who was a huge bust with the Jets, but they moved him from tackle to guard, which is really what he is. Mekhi Becton is a Mongo guard, and he's a right guard. And now he's on the right side of that Eagle offensive line with Lane Johnson at right tackle. So to me, watching Becton and Lane Johnson combo block on that right side against Green Bay's left defensive end and left defensive tackle made me think, that looks bad. I mean, that looks like the Eagles are better. So, and the Eagles made a number of nice moves. Quinyon Mitchell played really well the other night. They drafted Cooper DeJean. They brought in a number of different guys. They brought back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to their secondary. I think that helps them. They're not a perfect football team, but I thought their win over Green Bay was also an impressive win. So who impressed in week one? The Chiefs were impressive on Thursday night. No question. Saquon Barkley and that remade Eagles offensive line, very impressive on Friday night from Sao Paulo, where they played that game in Brazil. Okay, so those were the first two games. But then you look around the league. Steelers offense is a joke. Falcons could only score 10 points at home. Okay, no. Neither of those teams would be in the running. Buffalo, I thought, played well in the second half, but they played horribly in the first half. They were losing 17-10 at halftime to the Arizona Cardinals in their backyard in Buffalo there. So I thought, Josh Allen, if you just wanted to say half of a football, he looked really good in the second half. He wound up throwing 2 touchdown passes. He ran for 2 touchdown passes. Josh Allen looks like he's on his way to winning the MVP after 1 week. But Buffalo was not overly impressive. I mean, it took everything. They were life and death to beat the Arizona Cardinals at home. The Bears had an impressive second half where they put 21 on the board and won the second half 21-0 at Soldier. But they were down 17-3 at half, and Caleb Williams didn't look good. He had a really rough debut. So those teams definitely aren't it. The Bengals lost at home to the Patriots and Jacoby Brissett, so it's not them. The Texans got a win in Indy, but it was a 2-point win on the road. So it wasn't like they allowed 27 points to the Colts. The Dolphins won, but they walk through the first half of that game at home against Jacksonville. Saints dominated, but they won 47-10, but the Panthers are just atrocious. And then Sam Darnold was a huge surprise, but the Giants are really bad. Harbaugh's Chargers got a win, but it was 7-6 Raiders at halftime. It wasn't like the Chargers looked awesome in that game. Seahawks got a win, but they, 26-20 over Bo Nix in his first NFL game on the road. You would have thought that would have been more one-sided. I'll give you Dallas. If somebody wants to say Dallas was impressive, because DeMarvion Overshown, the rookie linebacker, had 11 tackles and a sack. Dak Prescott looked good at times in that game against the Browns. The Dallas put up 33. They had a ton of hits on the quarterback. I mean, if you go back and watch that Dallas game, Dallas's defense got 6 sacks and 17 hits on Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson dropped back to pass 45 times. So he dropped back to pass. They had 45 passes in 19 runs. Dallas was up 20-3 at halftime. So Cleveland spent the entire second half in comeback mode. And that just plays into Dallas's hands. So Dallas, if they can get a big lead on you, they're going to do what they did to Cleveland. 6 sacks, 17 hits on the quarterback. So I guess you could argue that was an impressive win, but I don't think much of Cleveland. Buccaneers won 37-20, but over the Commanders. The Lions look good in overtime, 26-20. They marched right down the field against the Rams without Aaron Donald and just ran it down their throat in overtime. But you know what I'm saying? Even that game, I mean, the Rams were in control of that game at different times, and that game was in Detroit. So, you look at the 49ers. Now let's talk about the Niners. Now let's talk about what the Niners did. They didn't have CMC. Trent Williams practiced, 3 days all summer? Brandon Ayuk practiced very little with the 49ers. He clearly, needs a couple weeks of conditioning to get back to his, real level. So you don't have 100% Ayuk. You didn't have 100% Trent. You didn't have Christian McCaffrey at all. All right. You didn't have a Fonga. He sat it out. George Odom played at safety. You still don't have Greenlaw. He's making his way back. And you take apart, you drop 32 points on the New York Jets defense. That was top 5 in most statistical categories a year ago. So I thought that was impressive. I mean, the Jets last year were 25th against the run. And so the game plan was absolutely to run the ball. But then Christian goes out and you don't have Christian. So then it's like, do you switch I would have had, looking at those numbers as somebody who's done quality control and game planning and that kind of thing. When I looked at those Jets numbers, I said to myself, if I was designing this game plan, it would be 60-40 run pass, maybe even 65-35 run pass, because the Jets have sauce. They have a good rush. They got a killer defensive line. DJ Reed's a good corner. They can play pass coverage. They can play pass defense. They can rush the passer. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're 25th against the run. Run the ball. But then there's no CMC. So then you're going to come out in week 1 and on a team that has Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, Juszczyk. These guys are all, regulars in the Pro Bowl. And you're going to say, hey, you guys all sit it out for the most part, or, you're going to take a secondary role. We're going to run the ball with JP Mason. But that's exactly what they did. And it worked to perfection. He ran all over the New York Jets. I mean, I don't know what more you can say. I mean, I know JP was upset in the post game and he didn't want to talk, and it was all based on, he answered the question from Lisa Salters. Hey, when did you find out? And he said, well, I found out on Friday, and that was probably the wrong answer. And he shouldn't have said that, and he probably got chewed on a little bit either by Bobby T or Shanahan or both or somebody, maybe all three, maybe him and Shanahan both, and maybe, who knows, maybe others as well. But it was pretty clear that JP knew that he said something, so he was told that he said something wrong. So, but can't we just, who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? Now, I know there are people who go, hey, the Niners are going to get a big fine. It's the NFL, and you can't lie about these things, and you can't mislead the betting public or the whatever. You've got to state, who's going to play, and you've got to abide by those rules. I get all that. But there's also shades of gray here. Who knows? Maybe maybe Bobby T said to him on Friday night, hey, man, make sure you get a couple good nights sleep. There's a very good chance you're starting on Sunday. Well, hey, very good chance and you're starting on Sunday are not the same thing. He literally could have been called on Friday by Bobby T and told, hey, if Christian's, Achilles tendonitis is bothering him, we're going with you. So it's not official, but just be ready, and he may have been told that, and that's all he shared with Lisa Salters. And then all of a sudden he's the bad guy after 28 carries. By the way, no running back in the history of Kyle Shanahan as an NFL head coach, which dates back to the 2017 season, he's never had a game where he's doled out 28 carries or more to a single back until last night, until Jordan Mason went for 28 for 147. What's really impressive, I think, about Mason is that 5.5 yards a carry. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's this year, last year. It doesn't matter if it's a small sample size, if he gets a lot of carries, a limited number of carries. He goes for about 5.5 yards a carry. That's his career deal. So he had 28 for 147, 5.3 a carry. He was the story, and it was fun to watch. It really was. So anyway, I thought that was my overwhelming takeaway. We're going to welcome in JD right now. And of course, you guys all know JD, and JD was in the house last night for Jets Niners. And JD, we were just talking about, my topic sentence in the first segment for tonight's Niners Nightly is that, in my opinion, the 49ers were the most impressive team of any in the NFL's first week. Just when you factor in, how much practice Ayuk had, how much practice Trent had, the fact that you had no Trent Williams, you had no Afanga, you still don't have Greenlaw. You've got, 3/4 of a new defensive line. You got a rookie starting opposite Quinnen Williams, at the line of scrimmage on your offensive line. And still, the Niners kicked 6 field goals. If they kicked 3 field goals, they might have scored close to 50 points on this defense. To me, the Niners were, all things considered, the most impressive team from week 1. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. When you look at opponent and the perception, I think, of the Jets, right? A lot of people think that the Jets are going to be a really good team and a potential contender even in the AFC. Now, they got to be able to stop the run at a little bit better clip, but the 49ers, when they're cooking, are as elite as any team in the league at running the football. And we usually see it with Christian McCaffrey. And last night it was Jordan Mason's night. I really liked the composure that the 49ers played with from the beginning of the game. I mean, they quickly force a 3-and-out on the Jets. They're forcing fumbles. They stopped the run. They ran the ball. And look, Garrett Wilson found some open spots in the zone on that third Jet series, and they go down and take the lead, and Aaron Rodgers looked like he was in a rhythm. And from that point on, the 49ers just completely dominated the game. They held their composure. They stuck to their game plan. They made the adjustment, and they dominated. And so, yeah, I thought it was as good a game as anybody had, and not even just the opponent, but how the Niners did it without Christian McCaffrey. We've seen it in the past. Sometimes you take one big player away from that offense and the whole thing looks different. Yeah, they didn't maybe score as many touchdowns as they wanted to, but to just snuff the life out of the Jets at the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half with the long drive to close the half, the Jets get the one play after the Niners kick the field goal, and then the 7+ minute drive, that little 10-point swing to make it a 16-point game was really the end of the night, and just indicative of what this 49ers team is all about.
Totally. Absolutely. And it's funny, when you watch the game, you have one impression, then you look at the box score, maybe you have a little bit of a different impression. Then 24 hours go by, maybe you watch the game again and it maybe hits you a different way. And then you look at those next day stats and those start to shape you. And listen to a couple of these, JD. Mason had 94 of his 147 rushing yards before contact. Only Joe Mixon, who had 107 for the Texans, had more yards this week before contact. So that's a huge, huge statement, in favor of the offensive line. Then the fact that the other couple that I want to throw your way, Mason faced a stacked box on 50% of the offensive snaps. So it wasn't like the Jets were like, hey man, we don't believe in this guy. We're going to play pass and we'll just dare you to keep running this big back. They had 8 in the box. In fact, Mason facing a stack box on 50% of the offensive snaps, that was the second highest rate of stack boxes among that all running backs faced in week 1 across the league. So he faced stack box at least half the time. He had 94 of the 147 after contact. He also led the NFL this week. He forced 13 missed tackles, which is a ton, most in the league. But the number that really jumps out is that the Niners offensive line, JD, posted a 96.1% pass block win rate, which is one of my favorite stats in the NFL. I really believe wholeheartedly in the pass block win rate. But the Niners posted 96.1% pass block win rate against the Jets on Monday Night Football. That was the third best in the NFL in week 1. So I guess my question is, you and I have covered a lot of basketball, and in basketball, it's like if a team changes out one guy, it's huge, especially if that guy's a great player or an awful player. If you add one player, change out one player in an NBA starting 5, the impact can be dramatic. And it's the same kind of thing on an offensive line. If you take one, like the Niners did not block Chris Jones in the Super Bowl. Now, was it Burford's fault? Probably. I don't know whose fault it was, but it looked like Burford's fault.
Well, Chris Jones is also awesome, right?
Chris Jones is also awesome. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's been wrecking other guys besides Burford. So, but they didn't block him in the biggest snap of the year. They didn't block him, and it was some kind of a gaffe on the right side of the line, let's just say. And we won't assess blame to an individual. But if Dominic Puni steps in there and you take a player like this out of the 3rd round, he looks like a really, really good prospect. He looks like a guy who might have gone in the late 1st. The way he's been playing, he only had 1 pressure allowed last night. He was going up against Quinnen for a number of those snaps. I guess my point is it possible, JD, that we all kind of need to pump the brakes on the Niner O-line criticism and kind of reevaluate what this line actually is now with with a 20% changeover with one new starter? What do you think? What do you think? I mean, because I think most people would be like, the Niner line stinks, but does it stink? What do you think?
And I didn't think McKivitz actually had a bad game last night either. He did have a penalty that, everybody kind of, I'm sick of McKivitz. He picks up the holding penalty. But
he had a couple penalties. Yeah.
He had a couple of penalties and not his best game. And he's been somebody on that right side, obviously, who's been maligned. He took over that mantle from McGlinchey, who had been maligned before him at that same right tackle spot for a couple of years. But no, I do think Dominic Puni makes a significant difference. It makes it a completely different offensive line, because I think when you look at it, now there's balance. The 49ers have always been able to run left. They've always been able to, get behind Trent Williams and get behind Aaron Banks. And Burford, by the way, came in and held his own for Banks a little bit last night at the left guard spot. Now that Burford is basically that swing guard who's going to come in case of injury and can play both spots, and played some left guard in college, I believe, and primarily right guard, obviously, with the 49ers. But I think looking at Puni, now you feel like that was the weakest spot. If you had to go to the 5 offensive linemen, I know now McKivitz is going to take all the flack, and that's fine. We can save that for another conversation.
Right.
But Puni, the right guard spot was the most maligned point on the 49ers offense. So now when you upgrade that spot specifically, I think it just opens up so many more opportunities for balance. And what does Kyle Shanahan want? He wants run pass balance. He wants left right balance. He wants inside outside balance. He wants to stretch the defense deep. He wants to stretch the defense to the sideline. It's about using those 5 eligibles to create space. And when you are a one-dimensional team in the running game, in terms of everybody knows you're going to run left, that makes you easier to stop. And Now I think what Dominic Puni is showing is the 49ers can be formidable, and they were last night, running it to the right. And if they're more formidable running it to the right, then that means that they're going to be much more difficult to stop when they run to the left, when they really do it. So to me, it all works hand in hand. And I think you do have to kind of reevaluate everything just with the one guy, because he, to this point, and we saw it in camp and you were all over it, Puni looks like a significant upgrade. It doesn't just look like, oh, now they've got a passable player as opposed to maybe a below average player. It looks like they have a plus player potentially at that position. So you're almost getting 2 levels better. You went from maybe below average to above average. So I think that's significant.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. JD, the more I watch this guy, the more I think he could have been taken anytime after like pick 20. I mean, if you had picked a Dominic Puni at 25, I don't think you would necessarily be all that mad right now. I mean, this is a very, very good prospect. I'm going to share the screen. Let's see. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to. Yeah, I am going to be able to share the screen. I will share the screen right here. This is Baldy doing a little breakdown. Mm-hmm. Look at this. Listen to Baldy on this one. Watch a little bit of the Puni. I mean, I could watch this stuff literally all day. I mean, I love me some Baldy. But here's Puni playing right guard. You got Mason in the backfield. Watch a couple of these highlights here, and we'll talk about it.
47 yards last night. Watch Dominic Puni. Let's just watch a couple plays from Puni. Watch him wash Solly Thomas all the way down right here. Mason will cut right off him. Like, he washes him down, and there goes Mason. All right, now, that's one thing. But can you handle a $100 million pass rusher in Quinnen Williams? You see, C.J. Mosley is going to draw the center's block. They want Quinnen one-on-one with the rookie. Can the rookie hold up? All right, here he is. Puni against Quinnen Williams. One-on-one. All right? Not many guys can handle Quinnen one-on-one. He stays right in front of him. That's a whole lot of power so that Purdy can make that throw to IU. All right, now, let's watch this right here. Can you explode out of the blocks? Explode out of the blocks to go cut off Quinnen Williams here. Not just, he's got him on one leg. Like, not just explode, but explode into him. Earhole him right there, and there goes Mason right off you. All right, now, down to the goal line. All right, you got an inside eye 4 technique. No way can you hook block that. No way can Puni do that. He's just a rookie. Nobody can inside eye a former number 1. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, he did. He just hooked him, and there goes Debo for the touchdown. I mean, Puni was outrageous. He didn't have a bad play. Not a penalty, not a bad play, not a pressure. The guy was simply awesome in his game.
I mean, the only thing Baldy got wrong in that entire video was the fact that he said he had no pressures. I think he allowed one pressure all night. But what you saw there, JD, is the foot movement. He's got the movement ability, so, and then he's a broad, wide body guy that loves contact, super smart, assignment sound. I talked to him in the locker room right before they shut it down last night. And I said, hey, I know you don't know all you need to know, about the game. I won't ask you specific questions because I know you're playing the line. He's like, yeah, man, I'm blocking my guy. I'm carrying out tasks on every play. I really won't really know until we all watch it together and Chris kind of goes through it. I said, I know, but you probably have a good sense for your best play and your worst play. And I go, do what stands out? And he goes, I think my best play was when I reached, a reach blocked on the linebacker and I got out and I actually knocked him on the ground on the one that got called back. On the penalty on the run. I think it was the touchdown that got called back. He's like, I thought that was my best play. My worst play, and he's like, I had a couple bad ones, and I took a couple false steps, and and it's like, and you heard Shanahan this afternoon talking to the guys, and everybody's starting to discover that Puni's a good player. So now Shanahan's like, hey, look, he's got a long way to go. You know what I mean? Everybody pumped the brakes, but they love him. They love him. And, and I know from being down there that Chris Forster does not compliment people often. And man, when he said a couple weeks ago, somebody said, what do you think of Puni? He's like, yeah, he's just been awesome. So, whoa, the guy who never compliments anybody just called a rookie offensive guard awesome. That was something, but to me, it was really fun to watch Puni. And I think we all kind of need to reevaluate before we sit there and just crap on the Niner offensive line. Like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You got Brendel was a Pro Bowl alternate 2 years ago. Banks is going to make a lot of money this offseason. Trent is the best. He's the standard at left tackle. McGlinchey obviously could be upgraded. He's probably not really a starter, more of a swing tackle kind of a guy. But they may have added,
right? Yeah,
McKivitz, excuse me. What I call McGlinchey.
Yeah.
McKivitz. And
same kind of angst among Niner fans.
But Puni, if Puni is let's just say he is what he's starting to look like. Like he might be the second best offensive lineman on this line to Trent. Well, if you added a true terrific right guard, the Niner offensive line, JD, may push beyond the criticism level and into that might be one of the reasons they win the whole thing this year. We'll see.
Well,
I mean, it's a tall ask, but there's a lot of football left. But
it
Puni
is.
looks good.
It is, and he looks good. And it's another area, Larry, where you look at this team, and we were having the conversation over the last couple of weeks just about, well, what areas are they better? What areas maybe are they going to struggle and have to figure some things out during the year? Offensive line overall would not have been an area of this team where I would have said coming into the year, hey, they're going to be better. And that's even knowing that Puni had a real good camp, right? Yeah, I think you're thinking, all right, he can be steady, but can he be markedly better to where he really makes the whole group better? I think that conversation's already shifted. And so you're looking at an aspect of this team where you thought maybe they were going to struggle, and not only are they maybe not going to struggle as much, but it could actually be a net positive. So I think that's significant as you look, there's always going to be pop-up problems, right? There's always going to be things that you aren't anticipating that become problems. This Christian McCaffrey thing is one of them. And so, as you start to look at the McCaffrey thing, you kind of put that in all right, this is a problem you didn't want, but you're going to have to deal with. That goes in kind of the negative category at this point. Well, you also, though, how do you mitigate that and win enough games to continue to get back to a similar spot, even though you're clearly not going to have McCaffrey as frequently as you did last year? Well, having a better offensive line and be able to run the ball the way you did with Jordan Mason last night, and Mason gets a lot of credit too, is one way to offset one of those pop-up problems that have come up. So I think it all works hand in hand.
No question. Okay, a couple other things from last night. What did you think of the Niner defense? Malik Collins. I mean, the 49ers, JD, have had 4 defensive coordinators in the last 5 seasons. Have they found their guy in Nick Sorensen? What did you think of the game that Sorensen called? What did you think of the defensive effort?
Well, I mean, Fred Warner called it flawless last night in the post-game press conference. at Levi's for Sorensen. The number one thing for me was that they stopped the run. And because you knew that the Jets were going to want to run, and they stopped the run. I know the Jets got some numbers late in the game. They got kind of the garbage touchdown, and there were some yards there. But they stopped the run, which to me was the biggest issue that they had last year. So that was something that I put on my little note card that I put down coming into the year. I always put, all right, things you're going to think you're going to be good at, things that are and stopping the run from last year to this year. Could that improve? And they remade the defensive line in an attempt to not only get more pressure, but basically to stop the run. Malik Collins, you mentioned it. He's a huge part of that. They stopped the run. I thought Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles played pretty well. Looking at the next level, he obviously ended up with the interception on the tip, and the 49ers matched up with a lot more base personnel last night than I thought they would. And we're all hyper focused on, Yadam's going to go to the outside and Lenore's going to move inside, and they're going to be playing a lot of nickel and who's going to come off the field and all of that. But they played a lot of base last night against the Jets. The Jets personnel indicated that that's what was called for. I kind of liked what I saw from Flanagan-Fowles, but to me, it started with stopping the run. Fred Warner, second year in a row. I don't know if you remember last year, week 1 at Pittsburgh. Fred Warner was just flying around, laying wood.
He had the big hit on Najee.
Yeah, early in the game, he's just flying around laying wood, and I thought Fred was flying around laying wood last night early, just setting the tone for his teammates, for the opposition, for everybody that's going to be playing the 49ers this season. And then Lenore, the PBU that turns into the interception. He had great coverage on Garrett Wilson on a ball that Garrett Wilson was able to get up top on him and catch it. And that was kind of a quintessential Rodgers. Maybe gave up a little bit of space there to allow him to get the position. But I just thought everything clicked. I thought Devondre Campbell looked better than I expected him to look. And Leonard Floyd was making plays last night. He had the sack. He had some other pressures. I think they do need to get Yetur Gross-Matos back, because I think Yetur Gross-Matos is more of the quintessential first and second down, stay true to the run complement to a guy like Leonard Floyd that you can let really get after the quarterback and rush the quarterback in some obvious pass situations. I think those two complement each other really well. So I think getting Yetur Gross-Matos healthy and out there will even help more. But so far, so good. I mean, they had Aaron Rodgers just kind of pinned in there, man. For a good chunk of the night and not looking comfortable, and they stopped the run, which is important. And I thought it was a really well-played game by the defense, other than that one series where Garrett Wilson with Rodgers found some spots in the zone.
Yeah, that one drive, and it was like Rodgers just kind of was a step ahead of the Niner defense at every turn on that drive, and he kind of picked them apart down the field with these little tiny passes.
Yeah, between Devondre Campbell and Odom, like 3 times. He found a spot right in between Devondre Campbell. It was like he had clearly, hey, I'm going to go after the linebacker I know in Campbell, right? And I'm going to go after the guy who's always been known as a better special teams guy than safety. And we're going to try to find some spots where Odom isn't quite there and Campbell's not quite there, and Lenore might be a little bit off initially, and they just kind of pick those spots.
You mentioned Leonard Floyd. Leonard Floyd had 4 pressures and 1 sack. He only played 20 pass rushing snaps. So he had 4 pressures and 20 snaps. That's a 21.1% pressure rate according to PFF. I think this is the move that we all kind of know was the big move of the offseason, but we really haven't talked about it that much, because in the grand scheme of things, Leonard Floyd is not a star on a team like this that has stars everywhere, right? I mean, there's some of the greatest stars in the NFL are on this team. So when you say, oh, they got Leonard Floyd, it's not like, oh my goodness, Leonard Floyd. But then you look a little closer and you're like, this guy's played 108 straight games. Then you look a little closer and you're like, wait a second, this is one of 3 players in the NFL to have 9.5 sacks in each of the last 3 years or more. So he shows up, he plays, he sacks the quarterback. And then you kind of think of the guys they've had in recent years with Randy Gregory and Chase Young. Arden Key and some of the other guys they've had, Ebukam. None of even D Ford. D Ford got off the ball, but he had injuries. I think Floyd is the best they've had opposite Bosa. And when I said to him, I'm like, man, you're going to run into some sacks with Bosa on the other side. I loved his answer. He's like, man, he's going to run into as many on his side because I'm going to, flush the quarterback right into his lap. So the Niners truly have a difference-making tandem off the edge. And it's like, the difference between having one great edge rusher and two is just night and day. It's like having a state-of-the-art security system in your house and then leaving your back door wide open when you only have one defensive end. When you have two defensive ends, there's nowhere to go. So I'm really excited because I don't think we've seen Bosa opposite a true difference-making edge. And at least we haven't seen it in a long time, right? Because even D Ford, that was what year was that? That was
2019.
Yeah, we're talking about 5 years ago, so it's been a while.
Yeah, it was Bosa's rookie year in 2019 when they had D Ford, and D Ford was kind of in and out. And look, that was the only year that really D Ford made any kind of significant impact with the 49ers. You said it. I agree with you. I think he is the best opposite Nick Bosa pass rusher that they have. And I think that is going to be significant, especially as, they figure out, they don't have a lot of depth at that spot. Like I like Yetur Gross-Matos. I like Leonard Floyd. I don't think they have a lot of depth, even in terms of the D tackles. I don't think they have a lot of, like, if something happened to Bosa, if something happened to Floyd and Gross-Matos, or two of those three, when you add Bosa in at the same time, I think it could be trouble. If something happened to Malik Collins, they do not have the defensive line depth that they've had. They really have, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 guys, honestly, where in the other years they had 10, 11. Like, they had so many guys, they couldn't even keep them all on the active roster. And, they'd cut them and they'd get claimed and they'd try to get somebody on the practice squad and it wouldn't work out. But no, Leonard Floyd's just a pro's pro. He's a pro's pro. And he's played in a lot of big games. He just raises his game to the moment. He's not affected. And no, he's not a superstar, but the 49ers he's a winner. He's a winning player, right? I'll use the basketball analogy that Steve Kerr would always use with the Warriors. It's right. You've got your 82 game guys who get through and you got your 16 game guys, meaning your regular season players and your postseason players. I think Leonard Floyd's a postseason player for the night. Like, he's a guy that's going to come up with some big plays in the 2 or 3, 4 playoff games and might ultimately be the difference between you winning and losing a playoff game or winning and losing a Super Bowl if he comes up big in that game.
JD, we'll let you go, but let's finish with this. There were a lot of great things, right? There were more winners than losers in this thing. Jordan Mason was huge. The Niner run D did their job. The Niner offensive line answered the bell. Brock Purdy played a clean football game. There were a lot of good things. Debo stepped up with Ayuk kind of new back to practice and took a lot of heavy runs. What was the negative for you? Give me the one thing that stuck out to you, that stuck out as the negative. The Jets, were converted 6 of 10 third downs, and Lazard dropped an easy first down to begin the game, so it could have been 7 of 10. There's that. What stood out to you? If you were going to point to one, it sounds nitpicking when you put up 32 on a defense like the Jets defense, but if we're nitpicking and you're looking for one negative, what's the negative?
Well, look, there were a couple things. I thought offensively the passing game was a little out of sync at times. I thought Brock Purdy played a really solid game, but he missed some open throws. I thought Ayuk was a little bit rusty, clearly, dropping the touchdown pass. He just looked a little bit off kilter. That was a dime from Purdy. That was one of Purdy's best throws, the touchdown pass that he dropped there. So I thought the passing game, again, I'll even give a little bit of a positive spin on that. Purdy had some big throws to Juwan Jennings I mean, 4 of Juwan Jennings' 5 catches on 5 targets were for first downs, and the 5th one was within a yard of being for a first down. So, I mean, Juwan Jennings always comes up with big catches, but I thought the passing game was overall a little out of sync at times. But they were running it so well, and Brock, even on a night where he maybe didn't have his best game, still hit enough big plays to keep the sticks moving. I thought they kind of stalled out a little bit in the second half after the Jets had gone down and made it a 26-13 game. They kind of stalled on the series where Moody doinked in the field goal. I thought they stalled on that, and then the Jets went down and scored a touchdown. But then they go right down and answer, and they get the field goal right back. So I thought that was pretty good. Special teams, the return coverage a little bit was an issue at different points. But then you look at Jake Moody, and Moody was awesome, making 6 field goals. So
I mean, the red zone you could argue was a struggle just because of the fact they had to settle for 6 field goal attempts.
I think that's a good call. I think red zone's a good call, but I'm not. I think passing games were out of sync all over the league. It was beautiful. I know you love it as much as I do. It was beautiful Sunday, just being able to, the Niners being Monday, you could watch everybody. You watch the Thursday game, you watch the Friday game, you watch all the games Sunday, and you just get to see everybody. But I think all over, early offenses typically are a little bit out of sync. So I think that's kind of a league-wide thing more than a 49ers. I think that works hand in hand with the passing game being a little bit off. I mean, if Ayuk catches the touchdown on the dime from Purdy, then they cash in one of those field goals, becomes a touchdown, and then maybe we're having a little bit of a different conversation. But all in all, not a lot to nitpick, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, seriously. No, it was a really, really good performance, top to bottom, and one that I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will take and take that to Minnesota next week. JD, awesome stuff. When does the KBR audience get to hear you next? Will you be on in a matter of hours, or is it days?
No, it's hours, and it's hours, and it's all week. The Giants are getting ready to roll against the Milwaukee Brewers,
nice,
over at Oracle Park, and so I'm going to be on after the game, talking some Giants, talking some 49ers as well on Sports Phone, and I'm going to be on the next 3 nights. So I'm going to be out of practice tomorrow. I know you will be, and Thursday, and then on after the Giants tonight, tomorrow night, and Thursday night before heading to Minnesota on Saturday for the 49ers and the Vikings. So busy week, but we got you covered, man. Looking forward to just keeping it all. I live for this time of year. I am so excited. This feels like Christmas morning to me, as once we get in that routine of games every week, and there's still a little.
You're talking about September baseball?
No, I'm talking about 49er football, and we got Warriors basketball around the corner. And
That's right.
And how about the report? I know we're gonna keep it to Niners, but one thing I am going to talk about tonight on KMBR, the report that all of a sudden Farhan Zaidi wasn't guaranteed that 3rd year that everybody thought he was guaranteed. That was something. Melvin. And neither was Melvin, which is weird. That was one thing, and I know I'll let you be, but that was one thing that I've mentioned a couple times, that I wondered if it was truly 3 years. I've mentioned it a bunch of different times on the Canberra Air. If you followed me, you've heard me say it. And here, John Shea getting the scoop that it was not a real 2-year full blown. He's going to be here for the next 3 years extension. That gives them the means to pivot if they want to here in the next couple weeks. Which
makes the Giants story all the more juicy as they head towards the offseason. JD, great stuff, man. We'll be checking you out during the week, talking Giants after the game, and have a great call tonight. We'll see you down at practice, and thanks for jumping in. And it's always fun talking Niners with you, bro.
Thanks, Larry.
The great John Dickinson, JD in the house. Fantastic. JD's always really good. Whether it's Giants, Niners, Warriors, he's always really, really, really good. All right, we're going to do this. We're going to take a 30-second break so I can get a pull of water. Then we're going to come back and look ahead a little bit. I got a couple more thoughts on last night's game, and then I want to share a couple thoughts, early thoughts on the Vikings. I haven't done the deep dive on the Vikings, but I did catch some of Giants-Vikings, and I'll share with you a couple thoughts on Minnesota, the Niners' opponent in Week 2. Sunday, they will be in Minnesota, taking on Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. And, of course, Greg Papa and Tim Ryan will be on the call, as they always are, and John Lund and Dennis Brown, Adam Copeland will be doing pregame. I will join them for a segment as well as in the postgame. And coming up next, we'll talk a little bit about the Minnesota Vikings as we continue with Niners Nightly on the Sports Leader. All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you on this Tuesday. Feels like a Monday, but last night, of course, was Monday Night Football, and I will be with you all week long on the KMBR YouTube channel from 6 until 7 o'clock, talking 49ers and looking ahead to Sunday, Niners and Vikings. So tonight, JD was our guest. Tomorrow night, Pete Bursich, who's the color analyst for the Vikings, longtime friend of mine. Man, I've been a Pete Bursich fan when he was a Notre Dame linebacker. And I've been talking to him about Viking football. He's settled in that part of the country, and he's been doing a lot of the Viking, color analyst work there in Minneapolis for years. He's a great follow and a great guy to talk ball with. Former linebacker and a guy who knows the game cold. So we'll talk Vikings tomorrow on the show with the great Pete Bursich. And then later in the week, we're going to have some other people joining us from Minneapolis as well. So Pete Bursich tomorrow night. Sam Exton, who covers the Vikings, is going to join us on Thursday. And then also tomorrow morning, I'm going to talk a little bit with another Viking beat writer that I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So we'll have some of that later in the week for you as well, some of the highlights of it. Let's talk a little bit about the Vikings for a second. I watched a lot of that Vikings-Giants game, and I don't know if we really should sit there and be like, well, the Vikings are this, the Vikings are that. The Vikings are solid, but the Giants are bad. And the Giants offense, I mean, Daniel Jones is just bad. I mean, Giants couldn't run the ball. Nobody really believes in Jones. Teams load the box and just dare Jones to throw it down the field. Now he's got Malik Neighbors, who had 5 catches on 7 targets for 66 yards, but the Giants are not much offensively. But man, Sam Darnold in this game was phenomenal. And man, if I'm right, I think the 49ers might be able to attract basically anybody they want to be a backup quarterback of the young veterans who kind of flame out wherever they're at after people start to take notice of Sam Darnold pre-Kyle Shanahan, pre-49ers, and Sam Darnold after the Shanahan 49er experience. Darnold came out, I think he started 10 for 10. He wound up 19 for 24 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was only sacked once. He did throw the 1 pick, but he had a 113 rating. Sam Darnold played incredible football, and he's got weapons. I mean, Justin Jefferson might be the best receiver in the game. I like Jamar Chase, but if you told me that Justin Jefferson is the best, I could listen to that argument. They also have Jordan Addison. He's a terrific player. And they've got other guys. I mean, Jalen Naylor's decent. They added Aaron Jones from Green Bay. Jones ran from 7 yards a carry this week against the Giants defense. So Minnesota ran 26 times for 111 yards, so 4.3 a carry. But Aaron Jones, 14 carries for 94 yards. He did have a 19-yard run in there. So, it's more like 13 carries for, 75 yards. But even that, I mean, those are good numbers for Aaron Jones. That was a nice pickup. So they got a legitimate running back who can catch the ball out of the backfield in Aaron Jones. Ty Chandler, the former North Carolina running back, is a decent backup as well. He's no easy guy to tackle. And then you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. They've got 2 big-time receivers. So, I mean, I think the Niners are going to be challenged incredibly in this game. And then on the defensive side of the ball, this Vikings team is not the same team as they were last year. They brought in Jonathan Greenard from Houston. It was almost like a trade. Greenard came from Houston, and Danielle Hunter, who was in Minnesota, went to Houston. So it was almost like they traded spots. Pat Jones, though, is a hell of a pass rusher. He had a couple sacks last week. So they've got a couple guys off the edge that can hunt the quarterback. Inside, Harrison Phillips, former Stanford player, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Tillery, who played at Notre Dame, kind of washed out in a couple spots. So they're not tremendous inside on their defensive line, but they got two edge rushers that are going to put a lot of pressure on Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. Ivan Pace Jr. is a really small linebacker, but he's fast and he's instinctive. They got Andrew Van Ginkel from Miami. Van Ginkel had a huge play in this game. I think he had an interception or a touchdown on a sack. Van Ginkel's very opportunistic. They drafted Dallas Turner out of Alabama in the first round. He's the favorite right now to be the Defensive Rookie of the Year award winner. Right before training camp or right after training camp, right there in early July, they signed Stephon Gilmore. So they've got the veteran corner at left corner. They have Byron Murphy, who once upon a time was a high draft choice of the Arizona Cardinals. He's at the other cornerback spot. So they've got some decent corners. They're really good at safety. Harrison Smith, the former Cal Bear, Cam Bynum. The key guy on this defense is number 44, Joshua Metellus. He is a nickelback, but he does it all. I mean, if you watch this guy, he's 5'11", about 210, and he's just everywhere. He's a delayed blitzer. They use him to rush the passer. They use him. He can cover. He can blitz. He can play the run. I mean, he, in a lot of ways, is kind of like their secret weapon. So, this Minnesota team is going to be a real challenge for the 49ers on both sides of the ball. The Niners offense is going to be challenged trying to block Jonathan Greenard. And then Blake Cashman and Ivan Pace Jr. make a lot of tackles. As I said, Greenard and Van Ginkel will be coming off the edges with Dallas Turner. So the Niners tackles will be challenged. The noise coming out of their building is massive. So you might have to go silent count. That will be one of the questions that we talked to Brock about this week. We talked to Shanahan about this week. Do they feel like it's so loud in Minnesota that they have to go silent count? But that's where this Minnesota defense is really going to challenge you. They're really good off the edge, despite not having Danielle Hunter. And then Metellus is kind of that wild card at the line of scrimmage. And you just don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to drop? Is he going to cover? Is he going to play the run? Is he going to blitz? Is he going to be a delayed blitzer? They give him a lot of freedom. And then if you watch Minnesota's defense, Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator, and he gives Metellus lots of freedom to kind of read it, read what he sees at the line of scrimmage and react. And the guy's very fast at doing both. He reads and reacts. So really underrated player. In fact, I was watching Inside the NFL a couple weeks ago, and they had their football guy award. And I think the football guy award went to, believe it or not, Juwan Jennings, who we all know is a, really solid football player, who's very underrated. And then Belichick said that the guy that he thinks is the most underrated player he's ever coached is Rodney Harrison. So they start going around the room, who are the most underrated players in the NFL? And it gets to Chris Long, and he goes Joshua Metellus from Minnesota. And everybody, is kind of silence from the rest of the panel. And Chris Long's like, hey, I know there's all kinds of people watching this show that think they're hardcore football fans that have never heard of Joshua Metellus, but he's a hell of a player, and he's right, and he's right. Nobody's ever heard of him, and he's right that he's a hell of a player that Minnesota uses in a variety of ways. So this is going to be a challenge. The noise is going to be a challenge. Covering, trying to cover Justin Jefferson is going to be a major challenge. And this offensive line that Minnesota has is not terrible. Christian Darrisaw was a first-round draft choice. Garrett Bradbury once upon a time was a first-round draft choice. Ed Ingram was a second. Brian O'Neill was a second. But these guys, they got a lot of talent on this offensive line. Darisaw is their best offensive lineman. He's number 71. He's just a big-bodied offensive tackle with great feet who played at Vatek and has gotten better and better and better. So, that's going to be a big challenge. Can they dial up some heat on Sam Darnold? Can they make Sam Darnold see ghosts? And then can they shut down Aaron Jones, both as a runner and as a passer? And obviously Jefferson, you got to make sure Jefferson, doesn't just absolutely dominate the game. The one thing about Jefferson is he hasn't played with Darnold for very long. So those anticipatory throws that, he had a chemistry with Kirk Cousins. He had a chemistry, with Joe Burrow at LSU. He doesn't have that chemistry yet with Sam Darnold, and you can kind of tell. So maybe that's advantage 49ers. But I think the Niners receivers are going to struggle in this game too to get open against Byron Murphy and Stephon Gilmore. And can the Niners block Greenard and Jonathan Bullard and Van Ginkel and Peyton Turner, or Dallas Turner, I should say. That's to me a big one. How does the Niner offensive line do handling the noise in Minnesota? So a couple more thoughts on the game last night. Just watching it again on the rewatch today, I definitely thought that Brock Purdy, it's funny, we talked so much about all these other guys that we really didn't talk that much about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's now 18-4. There was just a calmness about Purdy in the game last night. He's going up against a really daunting defensive line. And he's got a rookie at right guard, and he's got a left tackle that hasn't played hardly at all. And yet he was only sacked twice. He didn't seem like he took a bunch of hits. The Jets, I thought Brock Purdy escaped from this game I think if you're the 49ers, you got to feel thrilled. I mean, you're going up against a ferocious defensive line. They had 2 sacks, and they had 4 hits on Brock all night. Michael Clemens got 1. Quinnen Williams pushed him down once. I think Sauce got him once. And then the safety, Tony Adams, who, had 12 tackles and a sack, he got him on the sack. So that's it. I mean, other than that, that's not bad. As an NFL quarterback, I would say almost every team in the league probably gave up 3 or 4 hits on their quarterback. You can live with 3 or 4. What you can't live with is what the Browns had happen against Dallas. You can't live with 17. And if your quarterback gets hit 17 times, it's going to be, either a short year for him or a long year, but it's not a good thing. So I like the fact that the 49er, you're watching Brock Purdy, the ball, not only is the line look better in front of him, but the ball's coming out. He's not sitting back there, taking all day. He's got a good sense of where the rushers are. He's got a good sense of where the defenders are. His movement ability in the pocket, we all know, is really, really top level. But if there was one thing that he looked better at from last year to this year, he just looks a little bit more comfortable, a little more in control, a little less hurried, a little less rushed. He just seems to be a little bit more in control with a great rapport. And now he's got a good rapport with all these guys. He's got a good chemistry with Juwan. He's got a great chemistry with Debo. He's got an incredible chemistry with Ayuk, with Juszczyk, with Kittle. I just felt like Brock didn't put tons of zip on the downfield balls that he threw last night. But you know what? He just put them right on the receiver's hands with tremendous accuracy. And it was great to see. So, Purdy looks like he's finding a different level. They got this done with a heavy dose of Mason. I'd love to know, honestly, today, how does Jordan Mason feel? You just had 28 carries. You just took a ton of hits. Now he's a young man, and he doesn't have a lot of mileage on his body. But I'd love to know how he feels physically going into week 2. And if he feels fine, man, I would love to see another heavy dose of Jordan Mason in this game Sunday and dominate the time of possession. I love the idea of the 49ers eating more clock running the ball a little bit more, protecting their defense a little bit better, keeping them off the field, maybe, keep their plays under 60, you don't want days where your defense is playing 68 snaps or 70 plus snaps. You don't want that. You want your defense to play 40, 50 snaps. So, and I think that if I was Shanahan, I'd want to play some complimentary football this year and make sure that that I'm protecting my defense. Because the thing about the Niners, they got a really good defense, but it's not as deep as in the past. They don't have the same depth up front. When they brought in Hargrave, they depleted a lot of the depth that they had on their front line. They've gotten a little of it back this offseason, but they're still not quite as deep as they used to be on this defensive line. So to me, if there's one thing I think Shanahan ought to think a little bit more about because of the structure and the relative lack of depth on D, protect your D. Run the ball a little bit more. You got a number of backs, run them, use them. Win the time of possession. Win the time of possession by 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes if you can. Dominate the time of possession. Protect your defense. I think if they do that this year, man, they're going to benefit in December, January, and knock on wood, hopefully February as well. All right. That is going to do it for Niners Nightly tonight. Tomorrow night on the show, join us right at 6 o'clock. We got a big day on the Krueger show tomorrow. You're going to hear me tomorrow at 8:50 with Murph and Marcus on the KMBR Morning Show. We'll do our wake-up show that I do on YouTube with Damon at 9. I'll be down at Santa Clara with talking to Kyle Shanahan at 12:40. We'll go into the locker room at 12:45 after Kyle's done talking. Practice in Santa Clara tomorrow at 2:35. I'll be back at 6 o'clock for our Wednesday night edition of Niners Nightly, and the former Notre Dame linebacker and the color analyst for the Vikings, Pete Bursich, will be in the house. And then tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, Paulie Mack makes his second hit on the Krueger show. So we'll go live tomorrow night with Paulie at 8. So, hey, big day tomorrow. I've got to sleep fast. Thanks to John Dickinson. Thanks to all of you guys. Hope you enjoyed Niners Nightly. Catch JD after Giants baseball. Catch me in the morning with Murph and Marcus. Have a great night, everybody. And thanks for supporting Niners Nightly on the KMBR YouTube channel on The Sports Leader.